I'm Jamie Seeker, and this is What It Takes. Each episode, I sit down with real business owners to talk about their journey, the wins, the challenges, and everything in between. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to What It Takes. Today, we're diving into the world of architecture with someone who knows what it means to create spaces that truly matter. Paul Ladensack is a principal and partner at CCBG Architects, where he's spent decades designing buildings that don't just stand tall, they tell a story, they serve a purpose, and they impact the communities that they're in. With over 30 years of experience, Paul has worked on everything from cultural and religious spaces to commercial and residential projects, earning multiple awards along the way. But what really sets him apart is his approach, blending creativity, functionality, and a deep understanding of the people who use these spaces. And what you won't see on paper is he is quite the host. He had me actually out to his building. I got to meet a couple of his team members and see some of the projects that he's done firsthand. And I'm so excited to get to dive in with you guys on this episode. So we're going to talk about his journey, his design philosophy, and what it really takes to bring a vision to life in the world of architecture. So let's get to it. Paul, hi, how are you?
Great. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. So you've been in architecture, you've been in this world for gosh, what, over 30 years?
Yes.
So what
Approaching.
first drew you into the field and how did your journey begin?
A lot of people say, they want to be architects being young. I didn't know what architects did, but I was brought up in a kind of an art background. My family, I'm the baby of 9. So I had many different influences throughout my life and uh, working with people. I think just getting along with my brothers and sisters taught me to communicate and to listen. And I think that those are big keys to it. So when I entered architecture school, I thought architects only did the outside. And I was surprised when the interiors were part of the work. So I learned very quickly from my professors, and I was very fortunate to have great professors at
That's
Jersey
awesome.
State. Yeah.
Yeah, and they also say actually that statistically speaking, when they do studies on siblings and that kind of stuff, one of the things that comes out of that is you're resilient. You tend to have great people skills. You're able to problem solve when you get out into the world. And so I think it helps a lot. Yeah, you
Yeah.
definitely had a lot of influence there. But let's talk a lot about the CCBG Architects. You have a strong reputation for meaningful community-driven projects. I know when I came out to visit you, it was all about community. Oh, this neighborhood over here and that neighborhood over here, and just the history of it. I thought that really stood out to me. How did you balance creativity with functionality in your designs while keeping in mind like the history of places and, still trying to keep that identity of the community that you're in?
Mm. Well, our firm goes back to mid 1950s, and we've always been strong listeners, and we've been very fortunate to have great clients. And it really starts there. With the client base we've had and been able to nurture over the years, they really give us the opportunity to dive into what designs they're looking for. So I think part of our creativity as we work with our clients is listening to them, but trying to find the essence of what they're really looking for. And some come to us with strong beliefs that we can really take advantage of. Others come to us and say, well, we're not sure, so help us go through a journey. So we'll study whether it's text biblically or meanings they have inherent or drawing information out from their committees or communities. And we look for meanings and things that become their story, because it's not about us being architects, it's about being architects for our clients. And I think that's where we succeed is we find meanings, we find pieces and parts that are important to our clients and make those into their reality, which is kind of been very rewarding.
What's a project that you've worked on that you're like super proud of? What makes that particular project, if something comes to mind, what makes that meaningful to you?
Mhm. Well, we worked with Gethsemane Lutheran Church in Tempe, and oddly enough, we were the third architect in. So we were learning, well, what happened to architect 1, architect 2, and they showed us their schemes, and they were very beautiful buildings. So we dove in and listened to them and trying to figure out what happened. And it took an evening where I went to one of their celebrations with all of their founding families, and I looked at their existing church, and part of the scheme was to remove their existing church. And I left the meetings thinking, well, I can't do that. I might have to decline the commission, but we were able to save part of their church and turn it into a lobby and build a new church behind it. So we saved their existing worship space, repurposed it, and then built the new space what they're looking for. So we were able to save the community that had been there for years, repurpose it, and the people who had given their time and money and talents that was not erased. So we found a meaning there, and we're able to save part of their meanings. And some of it was sacred; they had sacred pieces and parts that we kept in place. But it became the heart and soul of their campus, and that one brings joy to me because again, we almost turned down the commission because I didn't see a way until we were able to work with them and find it to save their original church. So that
Well,
one means a lot to me.
yeah, I love that. And I think that that kind of stands out. The fact that you shared that particular story stands out to me just in having experience and seeing the kind of projects that you guys have been doing. Um, Many of your projects have revitalized historic or underutilized spaces.
Mhm.
What's the key to making adaptive reuse projects successful? Because, like you said, there's not always a way to do that and be
Yeah.
financially, and make a profit off of that. And at the end of the day, you guys are a business, so you do need to have that, be mindful of that. But also, I know how important community and history is to you. So being able to maintain that, I'm sure, is a balance.
Yeah, the adaptive reuse projects are very exciting. And one thing we've learned years ago with those, each building has a DNA. And when you understand the DNA and work with it, the project will go very smooth. So you try not to come in and impose your will on an old historic building. You have to understand it. It allows the scheme to happen structurally within it and spatially within it. And we look at the adaptive reuse and our additions to them, they're almost like lived in archaeology. Uh, we are not making a final statement. We're only putting a piece in at this point in time. And in our warehouse district, where we do a lot of the adaptive reuse, we've done buildings a few different times for different clients, the same structure. So we see that each new client that potentially comes in and buys a structure, we have to then have it adapt to their use. So we really take care with that. But you need to really work not only with the client, but with the building itself and find a good match. So we're not tearing down portions of facades or tearing down portions of interiors that have nice value there. And there are also structural challenges. So we try not to have to build a building within a building just to make it work. So we work with those.
Well, I love that. Every building has DNA. And you guys won numerous awards for your work. I got to see like a lot of the stuff that's up on the walls and all that kind of stuff. How do you guys approach designing spaces that stand out too?
Well, we're always comfortable to have our peers, judge us and test us. So we appreciate that. We open our designs up for criticism. We accept that and we learn from that. The awards really almost come from our clients. We ask them, would you like us to enter your project? We think you have merit for certain things, and certain clients accept that. Certain ones don't want the publicity, but it's just part of our profession. Some of our developer clients really like the award programs, so we're happy to enter those with them and with our photography and that and models and that. But again, it comes down to our clients. We're not trying to do it for our own egos. We do it for the project and to kind of get it out there to show things. And the youth in our studio likes the idea of entering pieces and parts and getting judged. We learn from those. We learn from the competitions. And when we don't place, we learn more from, okay, what can we do better next time, not only in the design, but possibly how they're presented. But again, though those are all stories, we love the narratives. It's not just the pretty picture taken across the blank field at a building in a field. It's about the story related to that. So we think we are successful when our stories are understood by our peers.
Yeah, and that's really kind of what I got from that. It's very evident that relationships are important to you, that your clients are important to you, and it's really cool that you've been able to work on some of those projects and to also be able to kind of have an opportunity to build things that stand out to, like you said, I really like the um kind of that philosophy of being open and transparent and letting peers and people that you trust and work with that are in the industry give you feedback. That's what a way to continue to grow. And you're obviously somebody who not just applies that in your workplace that's evident, but you're somebody who wants to pour back into the next generation as well. You've been a professor, a guest critic at ASU, other schools. What's one piece of advice you always give aspiring architects?
Well, to listen very well, travel. If you can travel at an early age, take that on. But listen to your professors. Each professor will have a key lesson that you can hold for the rest of your life. I really believe in that. And sometimes it's not as obvious up front, you'll learn it later, but they're meaning to help you. And part of that is tough love. I mean, you hear about crits being tough in school, and it's not criticism for criticism's sake. It's to help you and build upon that. So I think if students can keep an open mind, and again, working in your own studio, you should accept criticism from your classmates. And criticism is not a bad thing, it's a constructive piece. And sometimes it can be, tongue in cheek and get a little interesting, but it's all meant for the get better. And to kind of get thick skin early on, judge yourself, criticize your own work. I think introspectively, that's very good to do early on. And I
I
think
like that. That's good
students,
advice.
yeah,
What's one challenge in your career that shaped you as a designer and a leader?
shaped me as a designer leader. Well, uh, when I first started, I was working with a firm in the Midwest, Mackey Mitchell Associates, and I was given a small project that was kind of the back part of the Missouri Botanical Garden, and it was seen as maybe a product not quite so forefront. But then the client was the Center for Plant Conservation out of Boston, who moved to St. Louis. So slowly, this project became this very simple piece, got elevated by a great client, a great institution, and all of a sudden the pressure was on with my first design. Again, working hands with Gene Mackey on that, but it mushroomed into this. I was scared, so but it worked out well. They moved into that, and I've been successful there. But not realizing what I was getting into and the opportunities there. But I think I did a pretty good job.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it sounds like it. If you're still here and that
Yeah.
was your first project, then yes. But if you could design anything anywhere in the world with no limits, what would that be and why?
Well, that's a tough one. I tell you one thing I wouldn't design, and I've not is a home for my family. We live in a 50s bungalow in a historic area, and my wife goes, why don't we do a house? And I don't want to live in something that I have to look at every day or influence my will on my children. That just wasn't my DNA. But I think it'd be great to do one of the presidential libraries, and that's a far-reaching uh, aspiration. If you followed
Wow.
any of the past presidents at the end of the conclusion of their term, an architect of very high merit, which I am not, is granted the gift of doing the presidential library. And for those listeners out there, go look at some of the past libraries because they're beautiful. And that would be, if you're looking for meaning and something to try to find a heart and soul for, that would be the challenge, I think.
That's what a great answer. Wow. Actually, you guys heard it here first. If you ever get to that point in your career and you have that opportunity, we have to come back to this podcast and say, we heard it here. We heard it here first. We're making predictions about your future. What an amazing thing. I think that's something that I wasn't expecting such a um tangible,
Um,
that's great. Our signature question, though, is something that I think you could expect. We talked a lot about this. This podcast is called What It Takes.
mhm.
And I think we're really just trying to help educate other business owners or aspiring business owners that may not have thought about what it actually takes to have your own business. So, in everything in your career, what have you picked up or learned to say this is what it takes to be a business owner?
Yeah, I think one of my taglines is seek colleagues of a shared direction. And if you can find colleagues of a shared direction and grow and mature together and again, work with each other, that is a big piece of it. Architecture firms vary in sizes and cultures and philosophies. So if you can find a home, I think in any business, where you're with colleagues of a shared direction and you can move forward in that direction. I think that's been, I think, my success. I've always been fortunate to work with people that have supported me. In return, I hopefully supported them. But it makes life a lot easier. You love coming to work. You love going home. Uh, Part of that also is to have a good balance of life. You can work yourself crazy, but you have to have a balance of life as well. And architecture is living and breathing within the world. Like I mentioned to you, I got triggered into architecture by that. I think it was a Greek or Roman phrase that you're born into architecture, you live in architecture, and you die in architecture. And even though the sad part's kind of at the ending part, but it is part of our daily thing. Every time we drive and walk and move somewhere, it's related to a piece of architecture or landscape architecture. So I'm not sure if that's dodging your question, but that's where my heart's at on that.
No, I think that's really great advice. And it's also evident in your daily walk, I think, when um, just being able to witness that. We've talked about your team and how you've worked with, a lot of your employees have been there for multiple decades at a time, you know what I mean? Like multiple decades. And I think that's a testament to what you're saying here is, guys, surround yourself with colleagues that are gonna be good and also, what did you just show me before this podcast started? A picture of your grandchild, like a
Yeah.
balance of life, like you're living out, these things. And I think for somebody who's been in the industry for so long and been in the seat, I think that's really, really great advice. So thank you so much for being on and for sharing some of these insights with us, Paul. It's been an insightful conversation. It's incredible to hear how you approach architecture, not just as building design, but as a way to shape communities and improve lives. And for those listening, if you want to see more of Paul's work, where can they find that?
I have a LinkedIn page and our website. If you go to CCBG Architects, you can see our work from the last decade roughly. And I'd
Awesome.
welcome anyone that wants to come into our studio. We're right in the downtown area, warehouse district. Please come visit us. We'd love to give you a tour. Again, we're kind of an open work factory, so please come in.
Yeah, if you guys are in the downtown Phoenix area, he's a great host, and you can see kind of a lot of that community stuff that we were talking about. Thanks again, Paul, for sharing your journey and expertise with us. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who'd love to hear it. And we'll see you next time on What It Takes.
Thank you, Jamie.
Would you or someone you know like to be featured on this podcast? Our applications are now open. Apply today at seekersolution.com and click on the podcast link to get started.